the Griffin. Throughout this year, you'll see expansions harkening back to the roots of Hearthstone in World of Warcraft. And kicking that off will be the first expansion of the year, Forged in the Barrens. Next up, we gave our first look at our brand new game mode, Hearthstone Mercenaries.
Dobry dźwięk w każdym razie.
Dive into the VODs from day one, and you'll get some more info. Now, we're going to dive into your questions and give you some answers. First up, we've got Demetrius. Demetrius is asking, what does the future hold for the reward track, and how will the potential changes affect the free-to-play Hearthstone experience? Ben, what do you got for Demetrius?
So, with the Dark Moon Fair expansion, we launched our brand new reward track system. We got off to a little bit of a rocky start, and our players are aware of that. We've made some really big, great changes since then. I think by the end of the expansion, players are going to be seeing that they're going to be getting significantly more gold and other rewards for playing their kind of normal experience of Hearthstone. But as for the future, one of the big changes that we're making is kind of how the rewards track is structured. So if you're in the later levels right now, say 48 or 49, it's around 5,000 experience to get a level. And you get 300 gold for that. We're going to be splitting our levels in half. So it'll be 2,500 experience roughly, and you're going to get 150 gold. We're going to be doing that across the entire track. What this means is that there's less time and less investment between each time you get a reward. So you're getting those cool moments and that fun payout more often. We're also going to be slightly increasing some of the rewards on the track, and there's going to be a few new surprises that we haven't detailed yet that we hope players are going to love.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. Next up, we've got Andrew asking, will Duels continue to see support? I was given the impression that the cards were in rotation would rotate more than we have seen. Maybe new hero powers, treasures to grow with the new expansions. Ben? That's you.
Sobie tu trochę, tak szczerze powiedziawszy.
Throughout the year, we're going to be seeing more additions to Duels. Later this year, we're going to be seeing new heroes getting added to the mode. We're really excited to that. That adds a lot of new variety to it. But we don't want to take anything away. Players have invested their time and effort into unlocking these different characters, abilities, and treasures. And we want to make sure that we respect them.
Amazing, nie wiem.
However, in the Forged in the Barrens expansion, Duels is going to be seeing the addition of two expansions. Obviously, first is Forged in the Barrens, and the second is Journey to Un'Goro. There's tons of fan favorite cards in there, and we're really excited to see how players react to quests and other cool mechanics from that expansion.
More dinos. Always great. Next up, Katsu asks, how do you decide which famous characters from World of Warcraft get to become heroes and legendaries, and which ones don't? Joe?
It's a pretty fun process. I mean, as we're going through the set and designing everything, we've picked a theme and we start looking around in that environment and finding the characters that interest us, finding characters that people are excited about. I mean, if you look at Forged in the Barrens, we showed off Mancrick, and Mancrick is just such a great example of like an iconic character that everybody knows about in the Barrens.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Tim comes at us with the next question. Tim asks, how will the introduction of the core set affect class identity? Are you adding or subtracting things from any class's kit? Alec, let's toss that one to you, my friend.
Yeah, there's a little bit of adding in terms of cards coming in. There's also a little bit of subtracting. So it's really focused on refining what class identity is currently in modern Hearthstone. I think one example is you look at Rogue and some of the identities that they've picked up over time throughout Hearthstone's history. So you might see a Burgle card come back for a year, and because that's part of what Rogue does now. They'll have Burgle cards from time to time. I think really looking at some of the other things, how we want classes to spec out in the future as well. So for this year in Druid, and you'll see some of the removal pieces go out. So you'll see Wrath go away, so Swipe go away, but you'll see them do removal via feral cards. So you might see a card like Feral Rage come back. You might see a card like Pounce come back, and that's how they're going to be actually taking minions out. So we're giving them more of a refined look at how we want them to be in modern Hearthstone, with still retaining a lot of that class identity.
Awesome. Thanks, Alec. Next up, Savannah asks, what inspired Frenzy as the new keyword for Forged in the Barrens? Joe, toss this one to you, my friend.
I mean, I think the Horde inspired Frenzy. Forged in the Barrens is very thematic and around the Horde, and we were looking for
the Horde.
the the strength and resilience of the horde. We thought Frenzy fit really well because you damage the character and they're not dead yet, so they have the ability to come back with some awesome power.
Rodrigo comes at us with his next question. The new core set is awesome and refreshing, but are you planning to introduce 29 new cards with every core set refresh, or just on this occasion? Alec, what do you got to say?
Not 29 cards every core refresh. I think this year is definitely the big moment. So this is where the largest amount of new cards are going to be added to the game. And we may see some new cards in future years, but I would expect a smaller number. I think when we're thinking about the core set and how we're going to refresh it later on, next year, we'll probably look about 30%. That'll probably be where we start and ballpark and talk about, okay, what is 30% of this core set coming in and out every year? What does that look like? Is that the right number? But that's what we've been talking about right now. We're just obviously seeing reception to it and everything like that's going to, have some play there as well.
Corky's got our next question, and we're going to toss this one to you, Joe. Corky asks, what challenges, design, cool factor, uniqueness do you typically encounter when trying to one-up legendaries from previous sets? Joe?
I mean, it's not always about, one-upping something, but I think a great example of legendaries that we've kind of played off of from other legendaries in the past are the old gods from Darkmoon Faire. When we were designing those out, we looked back at, a lot of the old god designs from Whispers of the Old Gods and how they kind of acted. And like Cthulhu and Whispers of the Old Gods, it was
Is garlic coming to Hearthstone? Dobre pytanie.
Creature. And so we kind of took that theme and idea of building this big, powerful Cthulhu up and kind of changed it into this mechanic where you're shuffling in the 5 pieces. So we still have that, callback to the original card, but it's fun.
When will does the refund be increased?
Sweet man. Thanks, Joe. Jonathan's got our next question. Jonathan asks, do you foresee Hearthstone becoming more biased towards aggro or control decks? Do you as game designers have a preference for one? Or the...
Kurde, widzę, że przysłowie daj, jak to było, podaj komuś dłoń, a wpierdolić ci całą rękę jest całkiem żywe. Zwiększyli ilość golda, rozdają karty, rozdają legendy, rozdają pakiety. Hej, a kiedy zwiększycie ilość dustów? Ja pierdolę. Nie dogodzisz.
Some things we learned from were cards like Archivist Elysiana and, Priest Galakron, where the way they were going to win was going to take the other opponent to fatigue and just have more cards. We want you to have big endgame finishers that are actually going to close out the match for you. So that's kind of how you'll see control decks shift a little bit, with this year and hopefully into the next future years of Hearthstone.
Thanks, Alec. As a control player myself, pretty excited about that. Next up, Steven asks, what's the team's philosophy regarding RNG? What kind of RNG do you think is healthy? And what kind do you try to avoid? Alec, let's toss this one to you again.
Yeah, I think the RNG that we've been successful at most has been a bit more contained RNG, where, they can come from this limited pool of things. I think something like spare parts in the past was a good example of that. I think lackeys were a good example of that. There was maybe a bit too much resource generation with lackeys in particular, but they were, okay, you would get a lackey and you understood what the subset was, so you could actually have an idea of what to play around. I think sometimes Hearthstone, when we do these big over the top, this could be anything. RNG, like the Yogg moments, we want to make sure that those are powered correctly, because if those things ever become too powerful, it can create some some unhealthy moments, I would say. So those are the things that we look out for when we look at RNG.
Cool. Alvin's got the next one. Alvin asks, who writes the flavor text for your cards? And why are they so funny? Joe, tell Alvin why they're funny.
Well, Val, one of our writers and designers, actually heads up that whole process. And once we have all the art and designs for all the cards in, she collects them all. And then when she actually sends it out to the entire team. And so it becomes this collaborative process with everybody pitching different jokes and ideas for the flavor text. And then we go through and pick the ones that are most exciting. And so, it becomes funny because it's all of these great people on the team coming together and pitching all their fun ideas.
Team effort. Love it. Lance asks, is there a chance the team could look into improving the dust economy of the game? Ben, let's toss this one to you.
O kurde.
So free-to-play economy is a pretty hot topic, and there's definitely some challenges in talking about it. But I think at its core, we've made really big strides over the last couple of years in terms of making Hearthstone more approachable as a game. Last year we introduced no duplicates across all rarities. At the same time, we also introduced real competitive decks for returning and new players. Those decks are designed by our final designers, and they are real, legitimate competitive decks that players can just get into, play on the ladder, as soon as they come into the game. This year, our core set is kind of our big change in terms of how we approach the game and how easy it is for players to get into. There's a huge amount of free cards that players are getting access to, and we've put them at a power level where we think that they're fair. When you look back at the old basic and classic cards, there's some cards that were auto includes, but a lot of them just didn't really, meet the standards of seeing play in modern day Hearthstone. And the core set definitely feels better on that front and gives people a better stepping stone into the game. They're kind of building blocks for some of the decks and archetypes that we're going to see throughout the rest of the year. So kind of looping back to the dust system specifically, there's no concrete plans at the moment. It's something that we've talked about internally, that we do talk about. The free-to-play economy, another big thing we did to improve things there is the reward system. While there was a rocky start there, I think by the end of the cycle, players are definitely going to realize and see that they've got significantly more rewards. There was a post that I made personally back on Reddit talking about how much we could expect players to gain in terms of their economy. And I used myself as an example. I earn around 5,000-6,000 in a normal expansion. It's partly through play behavior, because personally I believe the reward track has been really awesome. The way the quests are and stuff, it's really engaging. But I have around 10,000-11,000 gold this expansion, and I'm sure, while you might not have that much more as a player out there, many of you are looking at your balances, you're also the card packs you've obtained and other rewards, and it's been much, much better for you. So I think, we don't have any tweaks for the dust economy right now. It's definitely something we're mindful of, but giving out rewards is kind of another way of achieving the same thing.
Thanks, Ben. Luca's got our next question. Luca asks, will the Alliance play any part of Forged in the Barrens? And if no, why not? Joe?
So we're leaning pretty heavily into the Horde, but Alliance is definitely going to have their place. There's a lot of different areas in the Barrens that are kind of more Alliance focused. Northwatch Hold is one of those zones that we kind of explore that has those Alliance.
Trochę to nudne, tak mi się wydaje.
Introducing these 10 new mercenary characters to and there's one for each class, and they actually follow the kind of break of Alliance and Horde. So we have 5 Horde characters and 5 Alliance characters. So whether you like Horde or Alliance, there's definitely going to be something in Forged in the Barrens for you.
There you go, Alliance players. There you have it. Now, Ben, we're going to toss this one to you. Ben asks, do you have any future plans for the Classic format?
Love the name, by the way. It's a great name. So in terms of the Classic format and expectation setting, I think our current plans are to not make changes. We want players to come to Classic and experience the game as it was. Something that I think is a misconception is that everybody's experienced Classic. There are millions and millions of players that go through Hearthstone. There's far more than 100 million people have ever played Hearthstone now. And many of those have never experienced Classic. And Classic's kind of a time capsule. It's the game as it was when it launched. And we want those players to be able to experience that and have fun with it. We also believe it's fun for all players. So as a format in the game,
Nie ogłosili bety Diablo.
choose to play, it's fully supported in terms of how it links into the rewards track, quests. It has a parallel ranked system to Wild and Standard as well. We're obviously open-minded about feedback. And we really want to see what happens when players get to grips with Classic. If they love it and it's overwhelmingly positive, we're definitely going to keep that on board and think about what's next. So kind of want to see how it goes, and we'll gauge it based on what our players tell us.
Right. Thanks, Ben. Jack's next up. Jack asks, with the addition of the core set and cards coming back in the standard, is it possible for Death Knight hero cards to return to Hearthstone? Alec?
It's possible for Death Knight hero cards to return. I think it's definitely possible. I think one of the things that as a team we want to do is probably bring back hero cards at some point for all the classes. And so when we do that, what's that gonna look like?
takie.
I think so we'll probably do that sometime in the future, and maybe down the road though,
No
when
fajne.
we don't have any plans to do that within our expansions, that could be a good point in time to put, hey, the Death Knights could come back. I'm sure. I wonder if we'd make any changes to them too. You know, we might make a few adjustments if they came back, but I know there's a lot of nostalgia packed into them, so I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Sounds good to me. Now, Joe asks probably the most important question of all, and that is, what Hearthstone meme is best? And gentlemen, we're gonna have all of you answer. We're gonna start it out with, of course, Joe, killing it, Killian.
Znaczy, wiecie co?
I mean, my personal
Może sobie darujmy to, bo
TK memes that people
to takie trochę nudne, szczerze powiedziawszy. Ja wezmę, przeczytam, jak oni to wszystko skończą. Bo oglądanie tego tak chyba do niczego nie prowadzi, takie mam wrażenie. Pytania są takie bez znaczenia.